Last year, before the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus, we actually speculated on this very channel whether or not we could Nuzlocke the Legends Arceus game. The conclusion we came up with is due to the spirit of the Nuzlocke, you in theory could do the challenge, but it ends up being that it's not a really achievable thing. And more importantly, it wasn't a fun game to Nuzlocke. I attempted it myself. And so, given that Scarlet and Violet has incorporated some of the mechanics from Legends Arceus while staying true to the mainline RPG games, we're here to ask that question: can you Nuzlocke Scarlet and Violet? I'm going to spoil it for you today, and the answer is no.
That's it, I'm out of here.
But before you stop the video there, hold on. I know what you're thinking. Well, why am I watching this video? Let's sort of go through what is different in Scarlet and Violet that makes it not really Nuzlockable, but more importantly, let's offer an alternative view, potential new way to Nuzlocke these games, because I believe there's a new mechanic that's introduced that actually might alleviate some of the main concerns that I'm actually going to talk about. So stick around for the video to hear my new proposal of what could be a potential Nuzlocke typing, depending on how the end game mechanics end up. Because again, a lot of this is still speculation. I do want to point that out. I mentioned earlier in Legends Arceus, it was a game that was difficult to Nuzlocke because of how encounters worked. Traditional Pokemon games would typically have you walk into a wild or tall grass and you would have a encounter table. For example, in Pokemon Emerald, if I go to Route 101, there are 3 separate encounters you can get there, which is a Wurmple, a Poochyena, and a Zigzagoon. These are completely random, meaning each time I go for that encounter, the first Pokemon that appears is the one that I'm going to catch. But I guess one problem with this overworld dilemma in Scarlet and Violet is that doesn't exist. There's no separation between the world that the player resides in and the battle screen. And so because of that, the player actually sees the wild Pokemon before battling them. So if we're taking the literal the rule of catching the first Pokemon in that area, which is sort of the traditional Nuzlocke rule, you're going to just get the first encounter you see. In Legends Arceus, Pokemon spawn in the overworld based on their suitability for that area. You're going to expect to see Bidoofs and Starlies in arid fields. You're going to see Geodude in rocky terrain. You're going to expect to see Buizels around shores. My point I'm getting at is the Pokemon are suitable for the environments that they are residing in. So one of the things that I noticed when I was playing Legends Arceus is the first encounter you get in the first area was always a Bidoof, because the literal first path that you can possibly see, that's the only Pokemon that spawns there. So if you times that by so many Pokemon, suddenly you're going to have very little variation to your run. You could in theory change the rules to say that you can pick a Pokemon from that area. I still don't believe it as compelling. So I guess one of the reasons why I play Nuzlocke, I play it for 2 reasons. One, I play it because it's a much more difficult way of playing Pokemon, because the games are made for children, so for me, I do enjoy the added difficulty. I feel like I need to have more of a challenge. I like being challenged. But the second reason I like playing them is it allows me to use different Pokemon I wouldn't otherwise use. So for example, a Pokemon I never used before Nuzlocking was Cloyster. Cloyster is a Pokemon that's actually quite fantastic, and I love using that Pokemon now because I've been able to use it during my Nuzlocking experience. In Pokemon in the overworld, we actually take away those 2 things. Because if we can pick the Pokemon I want in the overworld, we can pick the suitable Pokemon for the next gym that we actually might need. Or we maybe have a gap in our team that we need to fill. And if we can pick that encounter, suddenly our win rate for the actual run goes up significantly higher, which is just less compelling. Because you're picking the Pokemon that you want, you're realistically going to pick the same type of Pokemon. We have natural inclined favorites, and we're always going to pick those favorites. And I think that's the problem, right? We're taking away both the things that I believe what makes Nuzlocking fun. I'm not saying that you can't make that your Nuzlocke rule, like I'm not disputing that. I just don't think it's compelling for the longevity of the game mode in Scarlet and Violet. One of the problems with the open world game is that there are 3 separate storylines. Normal games, you would have one long story, but it was set, meaning that you would do some badges and you might do some storyline progression, such as evil trainers, maybe versus your rival at a certain point in the game. That can be done in any order in this game, and because you can do it in any order, we're having the same problem that I mentioned earlier with the open worldness, is that when you do certain storyline progression, there's no rule, because it's open world. There are so many things, and again, I'm not trying to talk negatively about games being open world. Unfortunately, the open world nature of these games is a limitation. The second problem that you're going to have, and it kind of ties in really well with the overworld dilemma, is that it's now open. So In traditional Pokemon games, it was very closed off, meaning you sort of, although sometimes you could do gyms in different orders, for the most part there was often storyline elements that would prohibit you from exploring the entirety of the map. And this does not occur in Scarlet and Violet. It's the first true open world RPG game. And with it comes with some unique problems. Again, if I'm going to verse Roxanne, there's only about 7 or 8 Pokemon I'm able to use prior to Roxanne in the original Pokemon Emerald games. And although Roxanne's not a difficult fight, you've only got 8 Pokemon. Now, if I'm able to go to all different areas prior to the first gym, if I'm able to go to every single area, you'd have like 60 plus Pokemon. I guess that point is you're going to have all the tools available from the early game. And because of that, it makes it easier to pick the team that you want earlier on. And therefore, I believe it sort of ruins that feel. EXP share continues to be a mechanic that's introduced in Pokemon, and over time, this has slowly become an item that you would give to a Pokemon to share EXP with. Now, it applies to your entire team, and it appears from the gameplay footage that we've all seen that everybody gets it irrespective, and there is no toggle feature off. What this means is if you're playing a hardcore Nuzlocke, where there are level caps involved, it can be quite awkward where you're going to have to level your Pokemon up, and because certain Pokemon are just used naturally more, for example your starter, which you're probably going to use for your entire run, they're probably going to get over leveled fairly quickly. You'd actually have to put these Pokemon in the box, and it's just painful having to do that awkward bag management. And the second problem which Scarlet and Violet has in particular of EXP is there's a new mechanic called Let's Go. Essentially, you can use your partner Pokemon, you can throw them at wild items for them to retrieve them for you, or even automatically battle wild Pokemon. They'll get small experience for doing so, but that small experience can matter over time, so then you sort of not only have to manage the average, like the weighted average EXP difference that you would get that after each battle, like traditional battle, you'd also have to keep changing the Pokemon that you use as your Let's Go Pokemon. My point is the EXP management is just tedious. There's no toggle off feature, and in my opinion, there is just no reason to not have it as a toggle because they've literally coded in previous generations of games. As I said, choice is king. That's how I always view it. The other problem with Scarlet and Violet is that trainers in the overworld now do not have a line of sight. In traditional Pokemon games, if you walk past a trainer in their line of sight, they will approach you and ask to battle you. This is no longer the case. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You actually have to approach the trainer in the overworld in order to battle them. And because of this, there is no incentive now for the player, unless it's for monetary purposes, to now verse trainers. In Nuzlocke runs, it's actually detrimental to verse trainers, right? So in theory, you want to battle the least amount of trainers possible. But however, because of this feature, it effectively kind of erases that ability, like that force fight issue. And what that means, less chances of you losing a Pokemon to a wild trainer, meaning that you have a better team overall going to gym fights, and it just ruins the potential for a run to collapse due to you losing Pokemon to silly trainers. And I guess again, it just takes away that difficulty. One of the main points I'm trying to get across with this video is that all these things have an impact on difficulty. Like for example, even like the original point that I made earlier about the overworld dilemma. If you're picking the first Pokemon in each area, you know the exact situation if you keep running the game over and over again. But if it's different Pokemon each time, there's a fresh experience, you're going to have to come up with new ways to solve the puzzle of that Nuzlocke, I like to call it. I did promise you towards the end of the video, I was going to explain a new alternative potential way for a Nuzlocke to occur. And the new game has a feature called Picnicking. Picnicking kind of works like the camp feature in Generation 8, Sword and Shield, where you basically would set up a picnic and then there are certain activities you can do. You can make sandwiches which have certain buffs in the game, but more important, picnic baskets which may contain eggs. And these eggs are hatchable. Now, what we don't know is how many different species you can hatch and the specifics of all that. Have random eggs form in these picnics, not based on like the gender of the Pokemon and the same types and all that type of stuff, where you could in theory see an egg-lock moving forward. And that might be a really engaging way to do the runs, because if you're having egg locks, that seems, in my opinion, that's quite compelling. So we'll have to wait and see. So it'll be basically a Nuzlocke where your first encounter is just going to be the egg in each area. You set up a picnic and you get the egg. Now, I don't know how that would look. There are a lot of ifs that can affect that, but you know, for sure that could be a definite direction moving forward. So we'll wait and see. Again, a lot of this is speculation. We are going to be doing a playthrough of Scarlet and Violet on release on Australia at midnight. So We are streaming it live on Twitch. Make sure you press the subscribe button and put the notifications on so that you can keep up to date with the channel. And I'll also post on the community tab when I'm actually going to post those videos. So stay tuned for that, guys. But that's it for me. Have a lovely time zone wherever you're watching me from, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, guys. See you guys later. Bye-bye.